Emily Kasriel, and I'm very excited to be welcoming you to this live Google Hangout. And as one of the judges of Makers of More competition, we're really excited to be announcing the 3 winners. Now, the 3 winners have worked with their community to create something totally innovative to improve the world and the lives of their communities in 3 very different ways. Now, I believe that social innovations with deep community roots are far more powerful, as they're based on real experience and deep understanding of unmet needs. And we'll be learning more about the winners and how they're working with their communities. But before we kick off, just a few things. This conversation is live streamed at /Makers of More, and we're also live tweeting, and you can follow our conversation #MakersOfMore Twitter for the latest updates. But we're also really keen to hear from you. So just if you put a #MakersOfMore, we'll be listening in and feeding in your thoughts, questions, comments into the conversation. In a moment, we'll also be hearing from Rob Wilson, who runs Ashoka in the UK and a fellow judge in the competition. But now I'm incredibly honoured to announce the 3 winners of Makers of More, a drum roll here, who have come up with successful innovations to appeal to the minds and emotions of their team, their supporters, their clients, for the Dream Bender from Indonesia, which certainly wowed all of us judges. And Dream Bender has created an open sign language dictionary and a learning app, which is interactive, in real time, attractive sign language learning, which uses a motion sensor, and you can practice gestures based on video, translate words into different sign dialects, and interact with an entire e-community of deaf people and people around them. Now, the founder of Dream Bender is Rizky Ario, so congratulations, Rizky. And tell me, what difference will making this prize mean for you?
Thank you. Oh gosh, Emily, thank you for the introduction. Definitely, I'm so proud of my team at Dream Bender. They just working very hard, and to be recognized by Ashoka and a team by Archer Genius Project definitely gives us energy and motivation and inspiration to develop more into our project and reach our vision and dreams, definitely.
That's fantastic, especially with your name. That suits you well. Our next prize winner, number 2, is Nsibuko from Uganda. And Nsibuko is a mobile banking solution which empowers local savings and credit cooperative societies. But their offer is far more efficient, cheaper, transparent. It's also convenient for people and a safer way. And we're talking here about a target group of people without bank accounts and without access to financial services like savings. So congratulations to you, Gerald O'Teen, the co-founder of Nsibuko. And if you could paint a picture of someone in your community who would benefit from Nsibuko, from your big idea.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm really delighted to be here today, and it's so exciting to be recognized by Ashoka for the Makers of More competition. You know, this solution, just to paint a really broader picture, about 18 million Ugandans, which is about 58% of the population, are not formally banked in Uganda. But if I were to narrow it down to a particular person that would benefit from this solution, I would give an example of a woman in northern Uganda. Her name is Best Ayoroth. Best Ayoroth is a single mother. Her primary economic activity is agriculture. She farms, and that's how she's able to pay for school fees and take care of her family. However, her closest bank is about 50 kilometers from where she lives, and the only place that she's been able to save and access microcredit is a savings and credit cooperative. Now, savings and credit cooperatives have been in existence for over a decade now, and this is where women like this have been able to save and borrow. However, they have lacked for a long time, have lacked the means to efficiently manage information and also to efficiently deliver financial services, and have been exposed to fraud and corruption a person like Best could easily lose all her savings to a corrupt individual just because there's no secure way to manage that information for her. But
Brilliant.
also,
I just want to get all the prize winners, because I know everybody really, so I'm definitely going to come back and hear more, but I just want to get our third prize winner in. So hold on a second there, Gerald, because you've obviously got so much to say, which of course we're all interested in, but I also want, before we go any further, to announce our third prize winner, which is Food Cycle. It's British, and it builds communities by combining volunteers, surplus food and spare kitchen spaces to create healthy meals for those who don't have enough and who also might be socially isolated. Now, each month, Food Cycle serves around 3,000 meals, if I'm right, created by almost using 4,000 kilograms rather than kilometers there, 4,000 kilograms of reclaimed surplus food. Now, the CEO of Food Cycle is Mary McGrath.
Good morning.
Hi, hello, Mary. And we're going to be hearing more about Food Cycle in a minute. But first, can you just give me a little taster, an example of a meal that Food Cycle presents, perhaps one that you've eaten most recently?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our volunteers are incredibly creative and in a very ready, steady cook style. Last week I was at the launch of our Hackney Hub, and they served the most delightful carrot and beetroot soup, a pasta bake with lots of vegetables and salad, and it was followed by a really delicious banana flapjack pudding. And all of these ingredients would have been thrown away, but with incredible creativity, that hub produced a beautiful meal for 50 people in that one setting.
That does sound rather delicious there. Unfortunately, part of this hangout does not include food, but a very big congratulations to all three of you, Mary, Gerald and Rizky. And before we dive deeper into discussion and hear more about your innovations and how you work with communities, somebody special also would like to offer their congratulations, who's Rob Wilson from Ashoka UK. Rob, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Emily. And congratulations again to all of the winners. I really don't want to take too long because we want to hear from the three winners, but I did just want to very briefly set the scene and maybe help the viewers understand some of the context and background to this international competition. So I'm Rob Wilson. I'm the director of Ashoka here in the UK. We are if you don't know, we're the largest network of social entrepreneurs all around the world, and we're delighted to be welcoming three new extraordinary social entrepreneurs into our network. We're also excited to have worked with Arthur Guinness Project for the past 4 years to support social entrepreneurs around the world. We launched this Makers of More competition about 6 months ago. We scanned the world. We were live in 36 countries looking for the latest innovation to support communities. We were looking at 4 different themes: economic development, environmental, cultural, and technology. The competition was open to anyone over the age of 25 to apply, and we received well over 300 applications. Myself and a handful of judges sorted through the many extraordinary applications to pick today's winners. And just to remind the viewers, we had one grand prize winner. Of course, that's Rizky, receiving 30,000 euros. And he'll also be receiving plenty of support from Ashoka and Arthur Guinness Projects to take that amazing idea, that big vision to scale. And then Mary and Gerald both received 10,000 euros each, and that's all thanks to Arthur Guinness Projects for sponsoring this Makers of More competition. We were judging against innovation, social impact, and sustainability. And I guess you don't want to hear any more from me, because if we hear from each of the winners, you will see why we scored each of them so highly in those 3 categories. So just one more time, huge congratulations from all of us at Ashoka, and we're so excited to have you as part of our community of social entrepreneurs, and let's see how we can start changing the world together. So thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Rob. And I should just say, as one of the judges, we had some pretty fierce debates around the table because there were so many other really, really important and interesting and significant and sustainable ideas. So it was a very tough call. You guys definitely won. We all came to a consensus, but we would have loved to have awarded more winners because they certainly were a lot of really, really exciting innovations that were brought to our attention. So we're really grateful to everybody who took part in our competition. So let's now turn to the 3 winners to hear more about their innovations and come first to Rizky Aryo, the founder of Dreambender in Indonesia. Now, I understand that Dreambender began as a project at college. Can you tell me about how this remarkable team and remarkable project really came about, Rizky?
Oh my God, that's true. So Isara started as a research project when I was at college, and actually the team of Dreambender, all of them were students, and we just stumbled upon each other in a club. It's called Programming Club. So we just a bunch of geeks that somehow have a passion to impact other people's life positively. So since then, we've been developing a couple of projects, and one of the project it's called Isara that currently is becoming a real project that impacting a lot of people.
That's fantastic, and it's certainly a big challenge, the project you've picked, because sign language doesn't have a global standard, and I understand that Indonesia has more than 700 dialects. So how do you cope with so many different forms of sign language and so many forms of dialect? How does your solution cope with this complexity, Rizky?
I can't hear you.
I was wondering how your project copes with the complexity of both of language and of sign language dialects.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all right. How does your project cope with having so many languages and dialects in Indonesia, Rizky, and also so many different forms of sign language?
So one thing that we really want to do with Isara is it is an open dictionary where we leverage all sort of different kind of language. And one thing that we can do with that is we leverage the community. So we go to different kind of communities and then invited them to involve in the development of Isara. The power of crowdsourcing can somehow solve, the richness of sign language in Indonesia.
And another thing that's very innovative about your project is that it uses Microsoft Kinect. It's a device that can actually sense where your body is in a room so that you can then check on your progress in terms of learning sign language. Can you explain? I mean, I know that Microsoft Kinect was originally designed for Xboxes and for games, but you've taken it for a very positive, different social purpose.
Yeah, it's been very exciting to use, cutting edge technology usually used to play games, but with these sensors we can engage people. They can understand sign language by learning, by doing it, and then we can use it through a gameplay so that they can happily to learn sign language, especially kids.
Okay, no, that sounds fantastic. So it makes it really, really fun. That's brilliant. We'll turn to you more. But after I do these 3 intros with each of you, please feel free just to interrupt and to come in. I don't want to make the whole conversation too formal. This is a Google Hangout, so we need to kind of hang out a bit as if we really were sitting around a real table rather than a virtual one. But I just think it's important for everybody who's tuning in and who's watching to get a sense of each of your projects. So I'm now going to turn to you, Gerald, in Uganda, the co-founder of Ensibuko. And what I think, and one of the things that really impressed us judges, is that both you and David Opio, your co-founder, grew up on a farm in Uganda. And can you tell me a little bit about what you saw there growing up on a farm and how that inspired you to create Ensibuko?
So thank you very much, Emily. As a young man growing up on the farm, I worked with my mother. My mother is a single mother. So I used to help her on the farm, and I saw the experiences.
What did it grow your farm? What was it growing, your mum's farm?
Oh, sweet potatoes, peanuts, cassava, and corn.
Okay. Yeah. That sounds delicious.
So,
maybe, Mary, you could make that in some of your, you could cook all sorts of unusual meals with that. But anyway, sorry, carry on, Tara.
I was going to say, yeah, lovely.
So yeah, I mean, farming was the only way I could pay for my education. I had no other option than to work on the farm. And you know, this same experience was shared by a lot of the other farmers in my community. It was their only source of living. In 2012, my mother used to save and borrow with a cooperative, and this is where she used to save all her money. And whenever she needed to pay for my tuition, she would pick this money from the cooperative. In 2012, she lost all her life savings to a fraudulent officer, and that really
somebody who was fraudulent in this cooperative.
Yes, she used to save and borrow with a cooperative. So all the money we got on the farm, we used to save it with a cooperative. And in 2012, when I was I just completed university, my little sister was still at school, my mother lost all her life savings to this cooperative. And it was because a fraudulent officer misplaced her records and no one could trace it. And this really shaped the idea that we are working on right now. David and I, my co-founder, both experienced similar experiences. Farmers lack the access to financing. The only place that they save and borrow, which are circles, have very inefficient ways of managing information. And so there's a high risk of those farmers actually losing their money. So after seeing these experiences and some of the very unfortunate events that the farmers were going through, we are compelled to start this initiative. So we started in 2012.
How does it work?
So we have a banking platform. Now there's already banking software in the market, but a lot of the banking software is really built for commercial banking. Now ours is 100% customized for cooperative banking. It meets the information and reporting needs of savings and credit cooperatives. We set up, it works both offline and online. So we set up an online platform where they enter all the data and information, but then it syncs online. That means that information is secure on a cloud-based platform. And so they manage all the information. They produce their reports, and then they can also be able to communicate with the mobile phone of the people that save and borrow with them, so that those people can actually be able to save and access their loan on a basic mobile phone. So that's really how the system works. It's a core mobile banking platform. Everything that happens on a mobile phone of a rural farmer is directly reflected on this platform, and the SACCO can be able to view and manage it there.
Because I know that in Kenya and in East Africa as a whole, there's been loads of development in the mobile finance sector. But what really distinguishes your project is it works with cooperatives. How many are there? How big a movement is the cooperative movement in Uganda and in East Africa?
In Uganda, there are about 5,000 cooperatives, and those are just the registered ones. There are several other informal ones. I could say over 10,000 of them. Cooperatives currently serve 58% of Uganda's population, 18 million Ugandans. Now, Uganda is just, if you compare the population of cooperatives in Uganda to that in Kenya, Uganda is about a quarter of the numbers of cooperatives in Kenya. The Kenyan cooperatives are way bigger, way more than those in Uganda. So it's, and it's not just in East Africa. You know, the concept of cooperatives is now an African thing. It's widespread all over Africa. So we see this solution not just solving the problems in Uganda, but also inspiring similar innovations all over Africa.
And how it works, for people who don't know about cooperatives, everybody gives a certain amount of money each month, is that right? And then when one member needs to draw on the money, how do you work that out?
So the way cooperatives are formed is that, you know, groups of people in communities come together. They have a management board. They agree to save and borrow from the cooperative on a regular basis. So what they do is that if they agree that they will be saving every week, they come together maybe under a tree, and they're able to save their money in a box. And then, you know, someone keeps that money somewhere. Now what we have done is digitize the whole process. So they don't have to keep their money in a box. They just need to have their money on their mobile phone and actually transact using digital money. And they don't need to have heaps of paper when they're keeping their records. All that process is really digitized. So that's really how it works. Someone sits in their home and can be able to use their mobile phone to actually direct money from their mobile money account to their circle, and that information, that track record, is already captured by the system.
That's
So that's
fantastic.
how
And
it works.
what has your mum said about it? Has she joined one? Has she joined another cooperative after her bad experience?
Yeah, she is. She's still part of a cooperative. She has no option. There's no bank in the community, so the only option she has is a cooperative. So yeah, one of her cooperatives is actually using our platform, and they're really excited about it, I must say.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
So,
Well, congratulations, Gerald.
I'm not only solving my mom's problem, I'm helping several other people that also save with her cooperative.
Yes, no, I'm sure. I know you're not just doing it for your mum, even though your mum might, I'm sure, be very, very proud of you. Thank you very, very much, Gerald. And let me turn now to Mary to hear, here in the UK, just to hear a little bit more about Food Cycle. Now, I have to say, Mary, I was really impressed with your project because it just seems to communicate its different multiple benefits in such a compelling way. And which you're also delivering social benefits in a host of different ways, for example, by employing people who've been in prison. So tell me, what brought you to Food Cycle, and how were you inspired to take and lead this mission onwards onto the next steps?
I was inspired to come to Food Cycle. I've always been passionate about food waste, actually, and I've always been passionate about food. I love food. Who doesn't? And I spent most of my life in the food industry, and I first heard about Food Cycle when I was at an organisation called FareShare, actually, and I worked with Calvin, and I was so inspired by the work of the incredible volunteers and the amazing outputs, the amazing work that we do, the connecting and building of communities, and that really inspired me to want to join the organisation, and it's an absolute privilege to work with such incredible volunteers. We have about 1,200 volunteers around the UK, and they collect food that supermarkets or markets or grocery stores would have thrown away, but it's still perfectly good to eat. It still smells, tastes good, etc. And these volunteers are amazingly inspirational. That we borrow a free community space, and we get on and we cook lovely food, and we welcome people in the community who might be at risk of food poverty or social isolation to sit down and have a lovely communal meal. And I think the thing for me, what's just really heartening, is clearly our guests and how we are responding to their needs. Many of our guests live in social isolation. Something like 64% of them live alone. Many of them haven't had a hot meal all week. It might be the only hot meal that they will have. Something like 74% of them skipped a meal last week. There's many. It's incredible the difficulties and challenges that our guests face. Many of them are hidden homeless. They might be living on someone's sofa, for instance, or they don't have kitchen facilities. So food
and we're talking about quite a big scale, aren't we? Because people outside the UK might not know that there's 4 million people in the UK who are having to deal with food poverty.
I just thought that most of the world would be quite shocked to realise that we've got people here in Britain who cannot afford to feed themselves, whilst at the same time we throw something like 15 million tonnes of food away per year in the UK. Now, most of that happens within people's homes, like 50% of that. People throw away. I'm sure people who are watching are absolutely shocked to realise that people in the UK go to supermarkets, do a weekly shop, don't look in the fridge, don't plan their meals, and throw their food away. So that's quite shocking. Whilst at the other end, people going hungry is an everyday occurrence. And that is quite...
And how has Food Cycle evolved since it started?
It first started as a very simple meal. It was an idea that someone had visited campus kitchens, actually, I think, in America, and Calvin came back with the idea that, well, we can do that, but let's try and make this about the community. And so it's evolved from just one simple meal cooked in 2009. I think, you know, May marks our 6th birthday. To we now have 20 hubs around the UK with plans to actually open at least triple that in the next 3 to 5 years. We know that this is a really important model for many reasons. Actually, bringing people together is really important here in the UK as well. Many of our communities can seem fragmented. People can feel like they live alone. Living in social isolation or not having communication with people is the equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day in terms of health terms. So we know that this is a really simple and lovely model. And if I can just bring you a story, last week I was at the launch of our Hackney Hub, and this lovely lady came in and she actually burst into tears while she was having her meal, and went over to her and said, "Oh, well, what's the matter? You're not enjoying your food?" And she said, "I've been stuck in my home for 9 months. I was suffering from breast cancer, and I, had nowhere to go. I was feeling really lonely, and I can't believe I've had this on my doorstep, and that this is somewhere I could have gone and made friends." So for us, that means so much to us. And so we believe our work is really vital here in the UK.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Mary, and congratulations. It really is a really exciting project. So now we're getting to the round table. So I'm really waiting for all you guys to come in on the discussion, especially as I noticed that my power on my computer is getting quite low. So you never know, you might have to I'm trying to get another power cord, but you might just have to discuss amongst yourselves. But before that, I'll just set up the idea of community here, because I think community is really important to the way that we selected the winners. And community can really be defined in many ways. It can be a sense of place, it can be an identity, or it can be a common cause. And I'm really interested to hear from each of you about what your idea of community and how you have worked deeply with your community and different ways of meaning of community in order to make your project really successful and meaningful. Mary, do you want to kick off as we've got you here?
Yeah, I'm quite happy to kick off. I mean, community to us is very much about building a local network and making people feel valued and part of our society. And we do have a very fragmented society, especially for people on the edge in the UK. And for us, the idea of building community is about integrating different people from different walks of life to come together in one setting and to build friendships and support and effectively social capital. So it's a physical as well as I suppose spiritual thing, really.
Okay, and what about you, Gerald? Gerald, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Gerald?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So community is where we seek inspiration. We always pride ourselves in the fact that our solution was co-developed by the community. A lot of what the solution looks like now, a lot of it has been from the feedback from the community. We had no idea that we would have this solution out there, but from engaging with communities, from working closely with them, we have learned so much. So for us, communities is the source of knowledge, the source of inspiration. And I believe for us, community means shared values, shared interests, people working together to solve a common problems. So it's really about.
Gerald, how have you had input from your community? You obviously, you come from a farming community, as does your co-founder. Yeah. But how has that, enabled you to think about the various iterations of your project? Because it hasn't been that long, has it, in development?
Yeah. So we started developing this solution in 2013. It's taken us about 1.5 years to actually have a working solution. And when it started, we conducted a lot of community workshops.
Yeah, continue, Gerald. Okay, I'm not hearing from you, Gerald. I think something's happened to your line. So I'm going to ask you, Rizky. Your communities are obviously really instrumental and significant to the way that you carry your project through. Can you explain?
Definitely. So for the past couple of years, we've been closely working with them. we've been generating more than 8,000 videos from them, and then
how many did you say? I lost that. 8,000 videos.
8,000 videos,
Okay,
and 3,000 more to come this year. And for deaf communities, it's definitely about acknowledgement, because for many years they've been marginalized for technology from education. So I remember when I started ISARA a couple of years ago, I came to the community and then invited them to involve in such a project. They feel afraid. They feel afraid because they think that their sign language were different, and different is wrong. But that's not the case, right? And today it's totally different. They are very proud with their language. They teach others they dialects, and then they socialize sign language to the society, and then gain recognition.
Is that coming to the UK? I mean, it sounds amazing.
Oh my God, I would love to, definitely.
A community that's in social isolation, we only really reach out to people who can speak. I'd love to be able to reach out to broader communities.
Wonderful, wonderful.
That's fantastic. Thank you very, very much. Here, I'm online on a different device here, so that is working. I'm wondering for you, how, as you progress your idea, all of you, and you're scaling it, how you still keep in touch with the communities and making sure what you do is relevant to them. Let me ask you, Rizky. I think we might have lost Gerald. Gerald, do we still have you, by the way? I'm not too sure. We haven't. So let me ask you, Rizky, how you continually work and get updates from your community.
Definitely. So, over the years, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay. So definitely, we want to catch up with technologies, so that what we've seen over the years, there is an amazing adoption rate of smartphones in deaf communities in Indonesia, and I think that's definitely an opportunity for ISARA to reach more people. So that's why we've been piloting our mobile apps, and we definitely will launch the mobile app soon, and generate more content, generate more videos, and then reach more people who hearing and deaf.
And how do you, and does everybody have to have one of these Kinect devices? Because they are relatively expensive, and I can imagine that not that many families necessarily have one.
So that's was the case like previous years. That's why we collaborate with Deaf Foundation. So we send the devices to the office, so that a lot of people can come to the office and then learn sign language there, or they can come to a school, deaf school. But like I said to you, that a lot of deaf people here in Indonesia are starting to use Facebook, Twitter, or even Skype, and I think that's wonderful.
That's fantastic. And you're planning on taking your project beyond Indonesia? How much interest have you had from other deaf communities?
Well, definitely we want to take it to the next region, maybe starting with Southeast Asia. Well, that's what I want to ask Ashoka help. Maybe they can give us.
I'm having a little bit of problems hearing you. I'm having a little bit of problems hearing you, Rizky, over here. So okay. Maybe it is worthwhile, just keeping with your photo and not doing the live video, because it might make it a bit easier to hear your voice. But while you're sorting that out, let me turn to you, Mary, and to find out a bit about how you ensure that you aren't seen at all, how you're seen as sort of a genuine, authentic part of community.
It's very much driven by local people.
Can you hear me, Mary?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you so much.
Just checking I'm not mute. Yeah, our projects are very much driven by local people or local partners. They decide when they find out about Food Cycle, they come to us.
I'm also having a little problems. Mary.
Yes.
Hi, Mary, I'm having a little technical problem hearing you. Could you possibly, I don't know if somebody could give us a little bit of advice on how to get rid of your video so we can just hear your, a bit like Gerald has done, because I think it might work to hear your voice more clearly.
Emily, just to briefly interject, I wonder whether it could be a challenge on your computer. I think I'm hearing Mary fine, so just to say there might be a slight issue with the sound on your computer. I wonder if Mary just continues. I think the audience are hearing fine.
Okay, so for us to make sure we're authentic and stay with local communities, it's driven very much by local people. They hear about Food Cycle and go, this is amazing, we need this in our community, we know there's a need. Or it might be a charity partner. For instance, we work with Islington Mind, which is a charity that helps people who might be suffering from mental ill health issues. And these organisations, these charity partners or groups of people in the community come to Food Cycle and say, we'd like to start one, how do we do it? And from that we share our knowledge and we teach them ways of working with, how to actually build a community, how to deal potentially with vulnerable adults, and how to cook a Food Cycle meal, how to actually bring together all those volunteers and to bring that whole incredible magic around it. It's a real ready, steady cook style idea, and obviously we need volunteers, we need the free community space, and so it's very much driven at a local level of organisations and people coming to us. So that's how I think we keep authenticity, making sure it's a local need.
Okay, and what about when you're bringing people around to eat together? Because people, I mean, you're talking about some great need, a lot of social isolation in some of the communities who are coming to eat your food, which I understand is quite cheap compared to eating out in London. How do you create that mood round the table so people are genuinely not just sitting side by side, but sitting and eating genuinely and authentically together?
Well, the meal itself is actually 3 courses, and it's served with cutlery, and it's served with real dignity. And these meals are free of charge. People can make a donation. But effectively, we also have volunteers who really enjoy engaging and talking to people. So our lead volunteers might sit down and actually share a meal with our guests. And that will be very much about getting them to talk, finding out about their stories, finding about their week, etc. We really want people to keep coming back because we don't want them sitting at their home on their own, etc. So it's very much about bringing them together, sitting and spending time with them. And the 3 courses means it does take time. You know, you sit down, you have your first course, you have a chat, and the volunteers actually serve the food as well. It's very much, we try to make it feel like it's a restaurant style. It's not a soup kitchen. This isn't about, you know, feeling sorry for people. This is really about how we can all work with each other.
And there is something quite transformational about eating together, isn't there? There's something, when you eat together, it's breaking bread, it feels biblical. People really do bond with each other in a way, it's like doing, you know, nothing else.
Absolutely. It's and it is that whole, and the meal brings people together, and it's, I mean, the food is delicious, but actually, even if the and many of our guests have said they've really made some real genuine friendships over meals. I mean, 85% of our guests have said that they've made friends as a result of coming to Food Cycle. So for us, that's really important, especially when you consider, and some people in the UK who are much harder to reach. are scared to go out of their home. I think once you sit inside, maybe an illness has happened, or something, you're changing circumstances. Sometimes people feel frightened to go outside, and it can be. We have to work with different numbers of organisations sometimes to help bring those people to the meal. It could be that we need to borrow someone's, sort of like a dial-a-ride, or get some sort of supplemented taxi to get people to our door. And once they cross that threshold and walked into a food cycle meal, the buzz is amazing. And it's such a friendly atmosphere. And creating that, you're really welcome. We love to see you here. Is absolutely essential. And our volunteers are amazing at doing that.
That's fantastic to hear. Just if you wait one quick sec, I'm going to just do something technical. And then I want to ask all three of you how you make your project financially sustainable. So let me first begin by asking Gerald.
Okay, thank you very much, Emily. So we charge a small fee. We charge $530 for cooperative per year. That is about 20% the normal cost of a banking software in the market. And then we also charge about $100 for data migration and maintenance. But that still is the most affordable solution in the market. So that's how we stay sustainable. So they have a renewable license every year. So we are profit making.
Okay, that's fantastic. And let me hear from you, Mary. I think you're slightly changing your financial model. Is that right?
We are, very much. I mean, initially it was about the local volunteers also doing fundraising for us. But over the last couple of years, we've developed really strong systems. I've got a volunteer management system. We've invested quite a bit within Food Cycle to have a really a sort of a practical way of how to do Food Cycle. And we are actually working with partners and developing a social franchise model. So effectively, organisations that really want to be part of Food Cycle and see that it would be an amazing service to be offering their local community, come to us, get in touch with us, and we take them through a training course. And from that, they pay us a fee, really, to look after and ensure that Food Cycle runs smoothly for them. And
so
they
what's
have
the scale of your business now? I mean, how many different Food Cycle operations are there in the UK?
There's currently 20, but we are on course to deliver another 8 within the next 12 months. And actually, we know that many of the organisations that we're working with, certainly in terms of partnership, the social franchise partnership, want to do more within their local community and actually open up different hubs in their city, for instance. So if I took Sheffield, for instance, the partner that we're working with there has already identified a further 4 places within the city where they want to host Food Cycle hubs. So this is going to really help us get to scale very quickly.
That's fantastic. I'm going to turn to Risky to ask about his model. But before that, there's been some questions that have come in, and there's one for you, Mary. So somebody has used the hashtag #MakersOfMore in order to participate in our Hangout, and they're asking whether Food Cycle has had to contend with difficult regulations. For example, in the US, some cities have actually apparently made it illegal to serve the homeless. This is what one of our audience is saying.
We don't have that sort of regulation, thankfully, within the UK. I mean, the regulation that we obviously have to stick to very good food hygiene levels. That's the most important thing for us in terms of legislation. All our hub leaders, so we have a hierarchy of volunteers, our hub leaders who manage to run the hubs all have a level 2 food hygiene certificate. And anybody who signs up to volunteer has to effectively go through a food safety demonstration before they sign up. But the food that we collect that's surplus tends to be fruit, vegetables, and bread. We don't touch meat or fish. It means that the meal is more inclusive, that everybody can share this meal. But also, from a food safety point of view, it means it'd be very unlikely that anyone would come to any harm.
I think I've lost you there, but thank you very much, Mary. That was just at the very end. And Gerald, tell me a bit about your model, where you are on that move, whether you're for business or profit or non-profit. How does it work? I'm not hearing you, Gerald. Is other people hearing Gerald? Can you put your hands up if you're hearing Gerald?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
All right. So I was just saying that we are a social enterprise. We have a hybrid model. We make just enough profit to keep us sustainable, but we make sure that a lot of what we do is impact driven. So I wouldn't say that we are a non-profit. Neither would I say that we are full profit. I would say we are in between a non-profit and a full profit. Yeah.
Okay.
That's how our model is. Yeah.
Another question for you from the audience. So somebody else has used the hashtag makers of more, and they want to know whether these cooperatives, did they quickly see that the platform was beneficial, or were they a bit reluctant initially? Did they see this something as foreign that they couldn't quite control or take ownership of? How did you convince them to work with you, Gerald?
So I think that's the point where I went off last time. So when we really started building this solution, we engaged the cooperative from the onset. We conducted the initial. We conducted we visited about 20 cooperatives at the start. We told them, hey, look, we are here to do a situation analysis, to study, how you people operate, what are the challenges that you're facing. We sat down with them and brainstorm solution. We did circles and circles of brainstorming sessions with them and innovation workshops with them. And we only brought in experts in ICT and finance to actually conceptualize this and make it a real product. But a lot of the innovation around our solution is generated by the circles themselves. And these were our early adopters. These were people that had been with us from the very onset. For about 1.5 years, we've been working closely with them. So it was very easy for them to take it up. But we also got the endorsement of the... How do you just
work as that ongoing? Because I can see for a first group who you're working with and developing the product, you really get to know them well. But when you're scaling and taking your product to different places, how does that work? How do you get people to buy in with a technology which for many people is still, only recently that they've adopted mobiles and so forth?
So there are two things that we are doing currently. First is we got the endorsement of the government of Uganda. So the body that regulates cooperatives in Uganda actually endorsed our solution and continuously tells cooperatives about our solution. But we are also, this month, we are launching a digital finance literacy program where we are training communities and cooperatives about digital finance and the transition from real cash to digital finance. And we use these platforms to let them know about our solution and also to onboard them. So there are two things that we intend to solve through those trainings. One, we want to be able to increase uptake for the solution, but also be able to address some of the concerns they might have about technology.
Okay, no, that sounds fantastic. And now I'm going to, because there's been a number of questions that have come in to the big grand winner of our prize, Rizky, for Dreambender, I'm sorry, not Dreamweaver, Dreambender. And one audience question wanted somebody who has tweeted hashtag makers of more, asking, can people practice sign language with one another through the software? How does that work? How does the e-community really work? Or is it something that they're working with the platform as individuals?
So what we have right now is kind of like social media for deaf people, so they can express themselves in sign language while they can also teach others sign language. So it's kind of like community language, community learning. Okay,
so they're working together. Are they both online at the same time?
So you can think it as an Instagram for sign language. You can post videos and then you can language, and then people can ask what is the meaning of this sign language, and then we can associate those status to our dictionary, and then make a social dictionary.
And you talked about the fact that your Dream Bender works with different languages. There's still something that I've just got a kind of problem, a sort of challenge about how you work with people. Is there not any movement to say that that there should be some kind of a united, like Esperanto of the sign language, or people really happy to have so many different languages, sign languages, which means they've got to learn them in order to communicate with people across the Indonesian nation? Risky.
Definitely something that we really need. Can you hear me?
I'm not hearing you, Risky.
Hello.
Hi, hello. You want to get rid of your video again? I think it sometimes works better without that. So go on.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can. Great, Risky.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, I'm listening bright and clear. You're sounding fabulous.
So definitely, the global sign language would be something that is needed, but we need to be careful because it is something that is sensitive for them. We need to carefully, represent this universal language from different part of dialects, and that's what we're doing how from grassroots instead of create your language and then forcing it to the back. So that's the idea of Innovator.
So that's all part of you being listening and working really closely with the community to find out what they want rather than you imposing what you think might work better.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And another audience question, something who has again used the hashtag makers of more, and it comes to you, Mary, at Food Cycle. And the question is asking about whether you've faced challenges of scale. Have you ever had to turn away somebody due to too much demand about eating your lovely carrot and beetroot soup, I think you said, some of your delicious food?
No, we would never turn anybody away. That would just be...
But how do you cope then if you haven't got enough food, if there isn't enough fresh, good food that is surplus from the supermarkets? How does it all work?
Well, effectively, our volunteers are incredibly resourceful. They always manage to find sufficient surplus food. We work with a number of different suppliers. It's not just the supermarkets, it might be local markets, etc., or greengrocer stores. It's incredible the amount of surplus that can be available. And if there was a huge surplus one week, for instance, our volunteers might actually cook food and freeze it and put it away for the next week. I don't think we've ever had a situation where we've turned anybody away. And when we see people turn up, sometimes people do come to the meal a little bit later than others. They might come an hour and a half into the meal. We always still manage to find food for them to eat. They'll always be part of the meal. Actually, we often have a surplus that we can give to our guests. So if there is a huge abundance of food, again, guests are invited, if they bring their own Tupperware boxes, for instance, to take food back to eat later as well.
That's fantastic, Mary. No, that sounds really brilliant. I'm aware that we're running out of time here, and I want to ask each of you really a final question, and if you could just keep it, we've got a little bit of time, but not too much. And a lot of people who might be watching this Google Hangout might be thinking of starting their own social innovation, and one based in the community. They may be anywhere in the world. What do you think for yourself, and we'll kick off with you, Mary, as you were just there, for you is the biggest lesson that you've learned yourself, or indeed Food Cycle has as an organisation, that you think that would be helpful for people? What do you really wish you think that Food Cycle knew at the very beginning? What could you share?
I think actually for us it's the power of people. I pinch myself every morning when I think of the incredible goodwill that there is amongst our volunteers and people who really want to help. So if you have an idea that requires the help of volunteers, don't let that put you off. It will be a success. People will come forward if it's an idea they believe in.
That's fantastic. And let me turn to you, Gerald. What's your biggest learning?
A little bit similar to Mary's. Community. That community is everything. You know, without community, you actually have nothing. It's, if you need to learn anything about, you know, a solution that works, then engage with the community more. But also you need to have a solid team, people that are highly motivated. Yeah, and then great partners.
And what gave you the confidence? What enabled you to become a change maker that you thought, you know, you grew up in a rural community, you grew up with a single mother who lost all her savings, as you said, when you were at college, she obviously worked hard for you. What gave you the confidence that made you think that you could make a difference?
So I spent my initial career years mentoring youth, young leaders and entrepreneurs, and I saw the amazing things that they used to do. And in doing that, I got really compelled and inspired to do the same. So I think for me, it's really about seeing the power of young people and how I can contribute towards that movement.
And am I allowed to ask you how old you are? You don't have to answer.
I'm 26.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. Let me now turn to you, Rizky, as a dream vendor, the very big prize winner of Makers of More. What's your biggest lesson that you want to share with our broader Ashoka community and the broader people who are watching this video and this live stream?
Okay. I do agree with Mary and Gerald. It's definitely about the team. We should have the same passion about social impact, and also it's all about the community, how we can work together and embrace the community to reach their goals and dreams.
And what is the thing that you wish, Rizky, you had known when you started this? What would have helped you if you had known something?
That they are open, the community. Sometimes we are afraid to approach them because, you know, we are outsider and we are afraid to really make an impact. What if the impact is negative, it's not positive? So just kill and then talk with the communities itself.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Rizky. And I hope for all three of you that winning this award is going to bring you recognition, funds, and a big energy boost and even more confidence than you already have already. And thank you to our three brilliant winners of the Makers of More competition. Dream vendors Rizky Aryo from Indonesia, Gerald Otim of Nsibuko in Uganda, and Mary McGrath of Food Cycle here in the UK. And thank you everybody so much for your tweets and your questions and your comments and for joining us today. And if you want to find out more about the winning innovations and in fact all the brilliant entries that we had to judge, and we so enjoyed judging I should say, please go to changemakers.com/makers of more. And also, please share this conversation. It's going to be up on the Makers of More website later today. So goodbye and good luck with taking your innovation to the next level. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emily.
Bye. Congratulations.
Thank you, everyone. Congratulations.
You too.